A woman walks in to her healthcare practitioner and says, "Hey, doc, I'm having a problem. I can't remember things. I can't sleep. I'm losing my mind. I'm getting angry all the time." And her doctor says, "That's okay. You're just in menopause. It's normal. You'll get through it." It's not a joke. How many women have gone through this? In my next conversation with Louise Neal, she shares a story of going in and seeking help and being dismissed. But Louise used that to her advantage. And that leads into our fascinating conversation today about Louise Neal's midlife pivot. It's a pivot that is going to help so many women. She's really breaking open the conversation around menopause in the workplace. The work that Louise is doing is going to lay the groundwork for so many of us. Louise is a career empowerment strategist and the founder of Momentum, movement transforming how menopause is experienced, but also how it's supported in the workplace. And she's the founder of Pivoting Point Coaching and Consulting and the co-host of the Empowered and Embodied Show. It's a podcast. Louise and I dive into so many topics that I think you're going to recognize, align with, and kind of be like, yeah, this has happened to me, or I've been feeling like that too. Listen to a few really thought-provoking things Louise has to say about cleaning our own house and renovating ourselves. Hi, Louise, how are you?
I am great, Jackie. How are you doing today?
I'm great, and thank you so much for joining me for this new podcast season. You were one of quite a few amazing women who took the courage to reach out to me in response to my call out for women who've made a big change in their lives. And I know it's not always easy to share those stories, so I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I think it's important to tell our story. And I'm so glad you're doing this series.
Oh, thank you. I love hearing from it's kind of crickets out there when you're in social media, right? So for me, I just love connecting with women one-on-one and hearing what's actually going on.
Yes.
So, when I put the call out for this season, I felt it was really important to talk about the fact that a lot of us are bombarded with information about the downside of midlife, but we're not really talking about the amazing things that also happen. And I do believe, from my own personal experience and from my community, that women are able to take that wealth of experience and knowledge that have gotten us to midlife and use it as a foundation to make big transitions and courageous and bold moves. So, do you want to tell me a little bit about your own story?
Yeah, I would love to. It's so interesting. It creeps up on us, right? We're busy like lifing. We're busy doing all of the things. And for me, I was busy working. I was busy having a really great career, building a little family. But my career was a lot of who I was, and it centered on that. And I got to a point, I don't know, about 10 years ago. So this is me in my mid 40s, right? And I'm starting to feel like things aren't going all that great at work anymore. Maybe I need a change. Maybe I need to do something different. And so I was in project management and I led some really good corporate initiatives. And I was like, for a long time, really in my zone, in my space. And then I started to not feel like maybe this was my space. And I started to think that I didn't have what it took to get to the next level in my leadership or in my career for some reason. Looking back, right.
Like, do you think when you say wobbly, do you mean like you were bored? Do you mean you were starting to lose confidence in your ability? Like what made you feel wobbly?
Yeah,
I like that.
I think it was about confidence. Like it was about, when something doesn't go right, I had this project that I had taken on, a multi-million dollar project. It was something new, it was something exciting. And earlier in my career, I would have loved to be in that space of learning and growing. But I was starting to feel like I was easily overwhelmed. I wasn't speaking up like I used to, and it was started to impact my confidence. And so I got to a place where it was like, I don't know if this is for me anymore. right when that happened, a headhunter, like, out of the blue came along and said, "I think you should come over here and work for this new company and do this new thing." And I'm like, "That's what I need. I need a change. I need to reset, and I need a new environment." And so I left. I left a job of 23 years, a career of 23 years. I grew up in this organization, and I left, and I started fresh, or at least I thought I was starting fresh.
So, lack of confidence is something I hear a lot from women, and I know I am going through that and have gone through that. So you were feeling wobbly in this lack of confidence, but yet you found the courage to make this big move out of where
It
you
didn't
were.
Right, but at the time, it didn't feel like a big move. It felt like if I didn't have confidence in myself, they did. Like a headhunter who reaches
Yeah.
out to you, they must know something I don't know. So that's where I think I kind of took my autonomy and I started to give it away. I started to give my power away to someone else. That was a move that did not work. I didn't find my confidence in someone else. I didn't find my confidence in a new place. And I went from feeling wobbly to feeling like a fish out of water. I tried so hard to make it work. I tried so hard to find not just my footing, but find my way in a place that I didn't have the credibility that I had before. And it got really, really hard. And I got really overwhelmed and got to a point, Jackie, where I was crying in the parking lot every morning trying to get myself into work. And I felt like I had to. I felt like this is what I should be doing, right? I should be in this place. I should be so happy. I have this great role. I'm doing some good things, and I just wasn't. But I had to put food on the table. I was a single mom raising my kiddo, and I felt like this is just what I had to do. Except my body started to rebel a little bit and really was telling me that I just couldn't go on. And so I just left my job. I was in the middle of a move and I was relocating houses, and I took a short trip with my kiddo, a little camping trip, and on that camping trip, I was like, "I can't go back. I just can't." And so I gave my notice while I was away, and I showed up. I had to put in my 2 weeks, and so I did show up back at work, but I was really not there because I'd
Missing.
already Absolutely, absolutely. And I had no idea what I was gonna do. I had no idea what any of these next steps looked like, and that was probably the first time in my life that I had no plan. I had none. I had a small little bunch of savings, but I was like, "No, I really need to renovate myself. I need to renovate my life instead of my home." And so I took that, and I stepped away from my career.
Wow. Okay, I have a lot to say about this. I think a lot of us feel we're restricted by financials, right? Like, what if this
Yeah,
doesn't work out?
yeah,
And I have a partner. So you're a single mom. And a lot of women are in that position where they feel really trapped because what do you do? But I've been there. I have done the crying in the parking lot. I have like done the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night dread. Like I was at an agency and I remember thinking, because I would ride my bike to work, if I could just get hit by a car and only break my arm, I would get a few days off and I'd be in the hospital for one of those days. Like, that's how I can get out of being in that environment.
wow.
I used to laugh and think that was
Yeah,
funny. And then I was like, I actually wasn't joking with myself.
yeah,
It was awful. But again, it was the need to do it repeatedly. And so many things happen, like it chips away at your confidence because you're not doing your best job. And
yeah,
then, when you're not doing your best job, everything follows.
yeah,
The other thing too is I find personally, and I think a lot of people do, when you've already kind of got it in your head you're leaving, you've already got one foot out the door and there's
yeah,
no going back. You just once you have one foot out the door, even if they offered you piles of money or changed your job, there's just you and I both know emotionally there's no going back.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, because we've already decided, our body's already decided, and no matter what kind of reasoning we can kinda spin in our minds, it doesn't last. But we stay too long. I think as women, like
Yeah.
we stay way too long in roles that just don't fit us, in careers that aren't really designed by us. And when we get to a breaking point, you're thinking about breaking your arm, right? Like that's
2 years later, I did break my foot, but totally not related.
But yeah, it is. It's so interesting because you're right. It takes a certain kind of strength and a certain kind of courage, but at the same time, it was probably the easiest decision I've ever made. Once I made that switch in my mind, my whole body like just released. It just said, "Thank God you're doing something different," because I don't know how long we were going to be able to keep this up. And it became easy after that in a way that now could start to align myself. I could start to find myself and figure out what that all look like and what those next steps might be.
It's a common theme, or it's emerging as a common theme for me. This idea that we need to find ourselves. And to me, that comes from wearing so many labels and meeting all the expectations of all those individual labels that are put on us. And then it starts to become questionable about where our priorities are. It's definitely not our self-care. Then I think like what happens is we get into this place where, like you had said, our body and our brain start telling us, no, not anymore.
Yeah.
And I do think like hormonally as we change and emotionally as we change, that's when we start to go, yeah, there's more than this, and I'm going to find it.
Yeah. Well, all of those things change in midlife, right? So, like those transitions that we're going through in our relationships, I think that's where it starts, right? Kids are more independent. We start to find ourselves with maybe a little bit more time on our hands where we maybe want to dive into our careers, but we don't know because we're still a mom. And like, how do we wrestle with that?
Yeah.
Right? Is it selfish to now like want to work more or want to do something more, but our kids are more independent? So we start to really wrestle with these labels that we've carried for a really long time. I think that starts the wobble inside us because we start to ask this question of like, well, if I'm not that, then who am I?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you're asking, like, it's funny the way you just said that. If I'm not that, who am I? You're putting it out there, but the reality is like, do you even know? Because until a couple of years ago, I really didn't know. I'm like, I'm not in advertising anymore. My daughter's becoming more independent, so I'm changing my role in motherhood, like
Yeah.
for where she needs me to be. I'm always changing my role or adjusting or getting promoted or demoted, but if everyone left me for a week, I'm not sure I would know what to do with myself because all of my responsibilities, like, they're gone.
Yeah.
So what's left? Who am I?
And I think that happens a lot in our workplaces too, especially when we're high performers. Like we make our way through our careers by being given opportunity. It's like, oh, Jackie, you're really good at this, so do this. And I was like, oh, you're really good at this, do this. And so we move through our careers in this way, but really we're in the passenger seat. Somebody else is driving. And I think at midlife we start to go like, but I want to be a driver again or for the first time even in our lives. But it's like, I can't remember how to drive. And who am I? Who am I as a driver? I don't even know. Do I like to go slow? Do I like country roads? Do I like freeways? Like, we don't even know what it is that we like. And so it gets really scary. But we have this, I think, deep desire to be in the driver's seat again.
And you raised a really good point there. Like most of us don't know how to do that, but or might not know like what kind of driver we are. But also, I wonder how many women are listening to this who go, but I didn't even know I lacked confidence. Like I didn't even know that that was a problem. Okay, so I'll give you an example. The other night, I have all these ideas for She 2.0, like 550,000 of them. And I'll start one and I'm like, yeah, we're going to go this way. And then I'm like, meh. And then we go this way. Then another thing and another thing. And I have like sticky notes all over the place, things I want to do. And I was lying there the other night going, why don't I streamline and why don't I focus? Like I have ADHD too. That doesn't help. And then I was just kind of quietly sitting there doing a little meditation. And I was like, oh my God, I know what the problem is. I have all these ideas. and I keep chasing them and going nowhere. And I realize it's because in the back of my mind, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I like am qualified enough. I don't believe in myself enough. And it was the simplest revelation ever, but it freaking changed everything in that moment. I was like, that's the problem. I was like, was the idea too big? Is it too logistical? Do I not have enough money to do it? Like I was always looking for the reason those ideas wouldn't work. All of those ideas will work. The problem is A, I overwhelm myself, but B, I just keep coming up with new ideas until I find one that I think I can do. And I didn't even realize it was my own belief in myself holding me back. And I wonder how many other women don't even realize that that's going on.
Sometimes it gets really hard to not just hold our confidence, but like to actually believe in ourselves and believe in maybe we don't know how to do something, but we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Well, like you were on a camping trip, you were moving, you were going through all these changes, and you decided to quit your job. Like, you knew somehow, you had believed somehow that this would all work out.
And I think it's to even go back a little bit is like, how do we make things so complicated? When we can simplify, when we can just come back to our core selves, like our core values, and we start to simplify what that is, what that means to us. And then we can start to pick up those things that really do matter to us, not to someone else, not the shoulds, right? We get should on our whole lives, especially as women.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. So tell me about the big change because leading up to it, very stressed just listening to it because I'm the kind of person who always has to know where I'm going to land.
I had this belief in myself that even if nothing else worked out, I could walk down the street and get a job at the drugstore and it'd be okay. I still pay the bills. And so it's like no matter what happens, I could do that. What I was really deeply committed to was not going back to the corporate world. And so it was this, I don't want to go back to that. So how can I piece together what this next version of myself would look like? And in order to do that, I connected with a coach. I connected with someone who I thought would have the answers for me, who could help me figure my life out. And funny to say, it was a terrible match. It was almost a terrible experience because this coach was like, "Louise, we gotta get you back in there," right? As a career coach, she was very much like, "Let's get your stories and let's get your resume and let's get you interviews and let's go, go, go." And it's like, but I don't know that that's where I wanna go. I don't know that that's really my path. But in this exploring with this coach, I started to become more and more convinced that I didn't want to do that, that I didn't want to go backwards because going back to corporate felt like a step back. So it was really interesting to have a coach that like it yeah, this didn't work, but I started to recognize that I needed something different and I couldn't find it. And it took me a
Isn't that
long time.
funny that you had a career coach who was pushing you back into an old box and that's how you made your revelation? It was so like the force for you was so strong not to go back that it forced you to look
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. Yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely. And I think we have these signals in our lives too. Like the people around us are either for us or not for us, right? And so when we have people for us, it can feel great. But when we have people who maybe are a bit misaligned and not for us, it can really start to open our eyes to like, why do we have that resistance or why do we have those people in our lives? And I think they tell us something about more about ourselves too. And when we can slow down and use that information, I think it becomes a catalyst or fuel to the fire.
Or just learning to listen to that information and not
Yeah.
ignore it because we do ignore it because, we
Yeah.
were kind of raised to be people pleasers and make everything nice for the world. So we have to ignore the flags to do that. But
Yeah.
we're so used to that that when you start getting signs saying this isn't working or this is like the better path, we ignore them because we're like, no, no, that's not
Yeah.
what I was taught.
Absolutely. And so, this story has a happy ending, I suppose, but that wasn't the ending, right? Like I started to take that and I started to say, well, if I need this self-discovery in my career as a professional, I just don't know what that looks like. I started to say, well, if I need it, other people need it. So
Mhm.
how can I help others? Because it's such a missing piece at midlife is how do we either discover ourselves maybe for the first time, but how do we rediscover ourselves? How do we get to re-know who we are so that we can make these choices that just feel so much more aligned and we can put down all the shoulds and we can put down all the roles that we've been carrying up until midlife. And that was the birth of my business. And for many years, it was great. It was moving along, helping midlife women reconnect with who they are and finding their role again. And they could be in a role that is perfect for them. We don't all have to leave our corporate jobs and start businesses. But we do need some time to figure out who we are so that we can make those next steps aligned with who we are. Right? What am I trying to put out into the world? Why am I playing small? Why do I keep coming back to this? And I started to experience some really interesting health impacts and how my health was impacting how I was showing up while I was trying to build a business. It started with a lot of forgetfulness and a lot of missing appointments, missing clients, missing showing up to pick up my kiddo. I was missing things, and I started to really feel that confidence start to slip again. And it's like, well, who am I if I can't show up for my clients? What am I doing here? Who am I? Why am I slipping? Why am I having this lack of attention to detail? I'd misread emails. I started to create more work for myself. And it started to compact, and I started to really question, like, what was I even doing here? What business did I have building a business if I can't do these simple
A little
things?
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I started to wonder, like, that was I in early onset dementia or like what was really happening? So, trip to the doctor. What's happening? What's going on? Nothing. You're fine. Your blood's fine. Take some iron. You'll be okay. And now these other things started happening. I started building up, and then I started in all kinds of places. I started to lose my confidence during COVID. Working from home, I started to have some incontinence problems. And bathroom was literally down the hall,
Yeah.
or you can turn your camera off and do what you needed to do. We all came out of COVID and started to get out into the world a little bit more. I couldn't get out for very long. I couldn't get out of my house for very long before I was looking for a bathroom or trying to find some place to go. And I would even call home and make sure that the bathroom was free on my way home so that I could rush down the hall.
Yeah.
And so more health concerns, right? More health issues and talk to my doctor and not once through this whole thing does anyone start to put these symptoms together, and not one time did anybody say perimenopause to
Oh,
me.
come on.
Not one time.
As soon as you said the incontinence thing, I'm like, did your doctor not first thing out of his mouth say pelvic floor physio?
Nothing. Nothing
Wow.
like that. And so I went from my GP, I got referred to a gynecologist. And again, she didn't say a thing to me other than here's some medication and you probably have just some leaky bladder, but take this medication for
Oh,
the rest of your life.
and the side effects were, and
Yep,
now you're on
yep,
medication that
yep,
you paid
yep.
for.
And
Mm.
so I'm like, no, 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 no. This isn't how I want to live my life. I don't know what's happening. And so I started to do my own research. And I got really deep into the research. And as I'm doing research, the more you research about perimenopause and menopause, well, then the more ads come at you and the more things that the algorithms think that you need to be able to help you. And I started to feel really angry that people who were kind of reaching out to me about this were just trying to sell me stuff. And I'm like, I don't need stuff. I need understanding and I need education around, like, first of all, like, what the heck is happening to me? And I don't need you to just pitch me your product. But I started to get really, really angry about how social media, especially, was creating perimenopause and menopause and how we're not talking about what really matters. And we're not looking for a cure. We're looking for how do we use this time to transition through our midlife and how can we support ourselves and create our own journey through this.
It's everything you're saying just like ticks all the boxes for me because it isn't about a magic pill because it's not the same for everybody. And there are some times where those symptoms of peri or post mask other health concerns. So
They
to
do.
be dismissed
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
frustrating. But also, like we said earlier, we start to lack confidence. I saw it in my own mother and other women in that age group ahead of me. And I was like, why? Why are you used to always do this? Like you used to always be okay with this. And when you think about it, if you're in, say, a corporate environment still, and you have like incontinence and you're having hot flashes, how is that supposed to support your confidence? I mean, you don't know why it's happening. So
Yeah.
now you have some fear under that. So,
Yeah.
of course, like it's not just like here's a hot flash, here's incontinence, here's brain fog, you're in peri. It's like those are the physical things that happen to us, but how do they impact the emotional part of our midlife transition? Not in a good way because we don't know what they are.
Well, we talk about the lack of confidence that we start to have in ourselves because we start to doubt ourselves, especially around brain fog and forgetting. If we forget something mid sentence, like nouns literally drop out of our heads. We have lots of adjectives. We can explain something, but the retrieval of the exact word or the name, and we start to be more quiet in meetings. Maybe we're not speaking up. Maybe we're not taking opportunities at work. Or as we build our businesses, we start to doubt ourselves. We start to doubt our capabilities and our competence because we aren't showing up in a way that we're used to. And we start to get easily more stressed. Overwhelm starts to happen, or emotional regulation gets a little out of whack too. So now we're having these big emotions for something that is very disproportional to the event that's happening. And we start to, again, we question ourselves, we question our mind, we start to question our bodies, all while we're still trying to figure out who we are and what we want. And our bodies and our brains seem to not be in alignment with helping us get anywhere answering that question.
That is such a good point because if you think that while we are self discovery, we should be discovering what's happening with us physiologically. And here are doctors and healthcare providers just
Yeah.
telling you it's fine, it's normal. And that's not helping our discovery, it's shutting it down. But all those things conspire against us to build more confidence when we should be at, the peak. We're in our prime,
Yeah.
right? This
Yeah.
is when we've got all this great information and like a little bit of confidence, we should have more. And then society starts telling us, "Up, you're shutting down," and you see the memes of old people and brain fog, and they're not funny. I mean, they're low-hanging fruit of humor, but, if you're in a boardroom and these things are happening, you're not just questioning your own capabilities, but people looking at you are questioning your capability.
That's
Can I
right.
promote
That's
this
right.
person? Are they agile enough, like, mentally agile enough to handle this, like, multifaceted project worth millions of dollars? Like, you start to feel like you're losing credibility, and you might well be.
Yeah, because we're not talking about what's happening. Because there's this big black hole of what perimenopause and menopause actually is. And it's not just women who aren't talking about it, because we talk about it in small circles. Like, there are close people that I talk about what's going on. I'm not talking about it with a bigger group. I'm talking about it with men as I'm passing them on the street, right? Like there's this taboo that starts to really amplify silence, and it starts to put us in silos around what we are and what we aren't talking about. And when it impacts so much, right? It impacts our relationships, it impacts our careers, it impacts our health. Like, if we're not talking about what's happening, then we're not able to take any kind of real action to really support ourselves through this transition. We're talking about years, and some women, it can be over a decade that they're in transition. And it's crazy to think about us just kind of putting up with this or having to step back in our careers because we're seen as less capable when that's not the case at all.
Wow.
It's frustrating.
I think I'm 10 years in now, but I would say I'm my own worst enemy. I know that there are things I can do. I can't take hormone therapy, but I know there are things I can do. I can eat better. I can exercise more. I know that those things will really help me, but I'm my own worst enemy because I'm transitioning to a new city. I'm getting my daughter into high
Yes,
school. We're dealing with stuff around the house. And like, again, I do it. I put myself last and then I wonder why I'm tired. I wonder why I'm overwhelmed. I wonder why I'm stressed. I wonder why my anxiety is through the roof.
yeah,
But I know that there's help. But the thing is, I have access to a lot of information that has helped me. And I know that that transition doesn't have to be as horrible as I've heard it can be if I take the proper steps. But how do we know where to get those steps? And like, who do we talk to? Do we talk to our doctor? What if they dismiss us? Then we just think that's it. If my doctor doesn't know, then nobody does. But really, we need to give women the resources beyond their GPs because there are a ton of resources. It's just about connecting women to them. And, we do have to advocate for our health. So this transition into postmenopause and even postmenopause can last.
yeah,
I mean, you're
yeah,
postmenopausal for the rest of your life, but it's still going through those changes
yeah,
and feeling those things like hot flashes and just being hot all the time or whatever. That can last a long time postmenopause. Like as soon as your period's over, it's not over. It's still
that's
going
right.
on.
Absolutely.
So tell me
So
how, like, all of this great knowledge that you have, which I know felt very overwhelming and negative at the time, but it led somewhere. It did something for you.
and so in my whole menopause, perimenopause journey and the research and the diving deep, it was again, it felt like a coming home because with the right research and the right information, I realized that there isn't a right way to do perimenopause. There's my way to do it. And what do I want to set myself up for? And this shift in mindset really helped me and started me thinking about how do I set my present self up to serve my future self? And it started to say, well, I do want to make some changes. And what are some of the small changes that I can start to make? Because we can really start anywhere.
Yep.
But I wanted to focus on the things that I felt was impacting me the most, and so that at the moment was my brain fog, and I felt like if I could try to get a handle on what that looked like, what it felt like, and started to make some small changes, it was like housekeeping. It was like, how do I clean up my environment so that I'm setting myself up for success? And then if there's still a real medical need for medical intervention, then I would look at what that could look like. But I needed to kind of clean up my house first. And the biggest thing that we have that's is very messy and very dirty is our sleep habits. And so
Mhm.
I started to look at how do I bring more good sleep into my life because that was gonna help me feel rested. It was gonna help me handle challenges, help me with my overwhelm, help me with my anxiety that I started having. And so I really started to focus on that. And then I started to focus on some of these other places and spaces that felt really good to me. And so thinking about exercise, my nutrition, how am I supporting my body so that it feels like it has energy? Sleep isn't the only thing that gives us energy. And so I really started to think about what are those small things that I could be doing? I don't have to change the whole world in a day, right? And so
No.
how can I start to just really look at some of these small things. But the mindset shift around, like, I can't even tell you, Jackie, how it's changed how I look at exercise. Like, it's me helping my body so that my 80-year-old self is out hiking the trails, and my 80-year-old self is grocery shopping and not dependent on someone else. And then my 85-year-old self is, right, has the confidence to go and go on a trip someplace new, and I don't have to worry about, right, my own health at that time. How is my present self? How am I setting my future self up so I can live the life that I actually wanna live? And that very much started to align with, well, I'm doing all this self-discovery and I'm finding myself again. Have decades where I get to be that self. I want to have decades where I actually get to live a life that I feel like I was meant to live, whatever that was. And so the whole self-discovery and understanding self and my purpose, a capital P purpose or small p purpose, right? Why am I here? Really started to say, well, but how am I supporting the why? What am I doing in my life to support the why I want to be doing it? And so that really started to fold in together for me. People need to hear this. People need to figure out, how do we support ourselves? What is that education that we need? And how can we then create communities, environments, and workplaces that are also really supportive of this transition that we're going on?
That's amazing because you have the lived experience to back up this information. You're not just going out there and saying, well, it's perimenopause and here's a website. You're saying there's more to it. There's more to us
Yeah.
in midlife than just menopause. And, these things that you're feeling, you're not alone. This is the big thing. We feel alone. We think we're the
Yeah.
only one because
Yeah.
we don't talk about it. And we are talking about it more. But as you said, women talk about this in small groups. I don't want to broadcast vaginal dryness in a boardroom.
Right.
It will impact your sex life, your libido, your relationship, your this, your that, and on and
Yeah.
on. So
Yeah.
understanding that we can't just look at, say, perimenopause in buckets. Like over here are the like hot flashes, and over here is the, gastrointestinal, and over here is this. All of these things can impact our emotional health and confidence too. So I really
Yeah.
like that you took that and did your soul searching and did your discovery and realized, oh, there's a formula here.
Yeah, there is. And I do believe, I know we're not gonna bring, like, all of our symptoms to work, but we don't leave our symptoms behind when we
No.
show up at work. These are all really important things to remember, that all of this stuff impacts how we're trying to move through life, how we're trying to build our businesses, or how we're trying to lead, how we're trying to show up. But I really do, Jackie, think that there's a place for workplaces to start to understand some of the mental impacts that
Yes.
menopause transition has. Like, we talk about mental health in the workplace, but yet we're not talking about menopause in the workplace. And for midlife women, we can't not talk about one without the other. Our mental health is impacted. Our careers are impacted. How we're showing up at work is impacted because the workplaces aren't supporting us in finding our own journey, because it's not about, like, we're never going to get diagnosed with perimenopause and you're like, great, now I can get flex days, or now I can go for doctor's appointments, or now I can go see, like, the physio that I need. Like, nobody's writing that out for us. And so a lot of workplaces aren't able to help us navigate and support us in what we need, because we're not diagnosed with anything. Yet it's impacting us. It's impacting companies because we're not getting the support that we need.
Well, the presenteeism, I talk about this with Shirley Weir from the Menopause Chicks. We talk about the fact that you might be there, but you're not present.
That's right.
But we do know there's a financial impact on the workforce when women go through peri and postmenopause and aren't supported. And I also think, there's still ageism there, right? If you have a 25-year-old or 30-year-old who comes in and they're pregnant and they have baby brain, it's cute, it's funny, and they get days off for
Sure.
doctor's appointments. But if you have brain fog related to menopause, that's a different thing. We don't want to talk about it. And it's the wrong approach, right? We don't have to broadcast it in boardrooms, but we have to have a general understanding, tolerance, and empathy. And
Yeah,
we also have to have some provision in our healthcare insurance for this and our
right,
flex days. And just
right.
the way that we're looking at women, how we can support them with maybe digital tools that might help with like some brain fog stuff. Like why wouldn't we do that?
When we can support as workplaces, when we can support women who are going through this, like this is a transition. I think this is something that we often forget too, and we confuse this with like just getting old, right? No, it's a transition. And so a lot of these things that are going to happen to us, our confidence, our self-doubt, our anxiety, our overwhelm, our inability to navigate stress, like as we go through this and as we get into post-menopause, many of those things are we're going to figure that out. We're going to be able to manage our stress differently. Our confidence is going to build. Our brain fog mostly will go away, or we find strategies that
Mm.
help us through that. And so we go through this transition, we're not less competent during it, and we're not less competent when we come out the other side. And I think this is one thing that we forget as we're going through this and we're trying to figure all of this out. We've got so much knowledge that we are able to give, but so this knowledge that we're collecting along the way, we are more self-aware in midlife and in postmenopause than we've ever been before. And
Yeah.
so how does this self-awareness, we bring that to our workplaces, we bring that to our leadership. Like we bring so much. And I know it's a tough time when we talk about ageism, but we really have to rewrite that story. We
Yeah.
really have to understand the knowledge and the mentorship that we bring to workplaces is irreplaceable. You're not going to get that anywhere else.
No, you're not. I really like what you're saying because I think a lot of us are thinking this, but we're not hearing it. We're not hearing it echoed around us too much. And the reality is, help us through that hard time because we still bring great depth of information,
Right.
expertise. Lived experience goes a long way in corporate culture, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think, when we don't support women in the workplace during this, we create another obstacle for them, which is fear that this is going to happen to them. And when it
Yeah.
happens, they're not going to have a career anymore. So,
Yeah.
not just flipping the narrative, but creating a safe environment for our careers. And it's
Yeah.
going to be women like you who don't change the narrative overnight. You change it like conversation by conversation, right? That's how it's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah.
And women are going to feel more aligned with it. They're going to feel more entitled to more support and they're going to start advocating for it. But
Right.
right now, as you say, there still will be guys out there who have said perimenopause isn't a thing. So if we still have to battle that level of knowledge, then you can
Yeah.
imagine what that's going to be like trying to battle it in the workplace.
Yeah.
So I know that this has led to another pivot for you and where you are now. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah. And so my pivot in my business and the work that I do is to go into organizations and really help them become menopause inclusive and really help
Amazing.
them think about all of these places and all of these spaces and some of the things that they can do to really help support women through this transition. Because it like, it's so interesting. We're always gonna have this, right? Like, it's not like this Gen X group that we're in and late boomers, right? Like, that are going through this transition and still wanna work. This is the new reality around how we show up in the workplace. And as we transition ourselves to the other side of perimenopause, there are more women coming into perimenopause. This is a thing that's not going away. This is a thing that will be there. And so helping workplaces design some policies and some education around what is happening so that we can be supportive and that we can crack open this taboo and actually start talking about it way that feels way more supportive. It's time. It really is time that we talk about it in this way.
I want you in every workplace across Canada, North America, the world. But you're absolutely right. You're normalizing it, right? By
Yeah.
doing this, we're normalizing it. And I think it's amazing that you've taken this, plus you have the corporate background. You know how it works, and you're able to go back on your terms
Yeah,
and say, I'm going to help you out. And I think all of us would love to know that our workplace was investing in us, in our future selves. Well, we're
yeah,
investing in the future of women who are going to come after us because, quite honestly, it's the 100% club and it's
yeah,
coming for you. So,
yeah,
the other thing is by creating these environments in the workforce, we're also helping men who might have a partner at home going through it, and I know we don't often talk about that, but I did have a man in my community who secretly listening to my podcast. And he sent me a text and he said, because I was talking about this, like the shame that comes with rage. And I had yelled at my daughter on her way out to school, and I yelled at my husband, I yelled at everybody. Everyone was upset. And then I cried all day because I'd done that and I felt like crap. And I was talking about this on the podcast, the shame that comes after, where you're like, who was that? Why did I do that? And he said, I cried when I listened to your episode because my wife's doing this. And I didn't realize until I listened to you that she's probably in perimenopause. And I need to learn about this because I need to be able to help her without offending her. But I need to understand why she hates me all the time.
yeah,
And if we can have everyone come to the table and understand what's happening, our partners won't take it as personally. We might save some relationships in our community. We might be more empathetic to what people are going through. And if I'm a 30-year-old looking at 50-year-old me going through it, I might be a little more empathetic and less judgmental, thinking,
right.
okay, so now you reach out to businesses and you say, let me help you. Let me help you help me and all of the women who will pass through your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me help you help the men at your organization too, because you're right. There's, you know, we all as men, we know someone, we will know someone, or we have known someone who's gone through this transition because it is the 100% club. And so it's about understanding and supporting, and also like what is your role as we as women try to figure out like what is our treatment and how do we navigate through all of this. The men in our lives are trying to figure out what their role is too when it comes through education and it comes through conversation, inclusive conversations around it. This isn't meant to be an embarrassing or taboo topic. The more we can talk about it and the more we have it in our communities and the more we have it in our culture, guess what? That actually impacts our own menopause symptoms. The more we are talking about it, then we actually have less stress and anxiety over what's happening. We have more knowledge. We seek treatments faster. We clean our house up a lot sooner in our lives so that we are actually able to go through this transition. And it might become just a bump in the road instead of a turbulent storm that we're having to
Yes.
navigate. And so the more we talk about it, guess what? Maybe the less women are going to be impacted by their own symptoms, but the less women are going to have to step out, or the less women are going to have to, right, make choices that they feel health over careers because we're talking about it more. It impacts us in so many ways.
Louise, this is amazing. And I want to thank you for sharing your story because leading up to this, you did mention a lot of hurdles and obstacles that either I could relate to or I could feel the terror behind. It really was a challenge for you to get to this point, and you've done such a great job. And now what you're doing is taking all of that and helping the future of women. And I'm going to include your information in the content around this podcast because this isn't just like if you're listening to this and you want Louise to come speak to your workplace, like women have to advocate by asking HR, please bring Louise in, please provide resources. Where can I get this? Like, we need to start standing up and pushing for it because sometimes HR is not thinking about it or doesn't even know who to contact or where to go.
Right.
So I think it's so important to have people like you out there to come out and help guide a business on how to support women in their work environment. So thank you for the work you're doing and for the courage to share your story with me today.
Absolutely, Jackie. Thank you for creating the space where we all get to share our stories, and it's important.